Good morning, dear students. This is another video session for one of the problems that has been sent by the students. And this problem, it's a simple question, but I'm just gonna do some. I'm gonna mention a few basic points enabling you to how you can demonstrate inserting graph that you see in front of you into and matching that with a certain equation. So in front of you in this question, the question is giving you like 6 graphs and basically asking you to match it with certain table that you see in front of you. So the request is to say this equation is representing which graph is it, whether if it's a graph A, B, C, and also this equation and this equation. So before I talk about the graphs, let's just mention one thing. What you see in front of you is representing two things. It's representing the cubic function or the cubic graph beside another one called reciprocal graph. Okay, one of two things. What you see in front of you, for example, this is reciprocal, this is reciprocal, this is reciprocal, this is also reciprocal, while these two, they represent a cubic graph. Now the trick is how you can recognize what I'm saying right now. So since you're a student, sometimes you're gonna get confused. Now let's talk about the general shape or the general form of what is reciprocal and what is considered a cubic graph. When I talk about cubic, or I'm gonna talk about the reciprocal first. Reciprocal. The reciprocal function is any function that can be represented in terms of where you have x or whatever you want to call it. I'm just gonna say that it's anything in this general form from our study. It's anything that can represent it as a over x from our study, where a is representing integer or constant. Okay. The thing is that if I say that this is called the general form, when I say general form, I'm talking about the idea that this has the possibility of being in this form. And another thing about the reciprocal consists of two parts. It's two graphs in one, okay? Because it has two parts. And when I say that this is representing what? This is representing the y equal 1 over x. Now the thing is that sometimes you have a different form of this graph. For example, some students will say sometimes we see questions where this reciprocal can take these sides, okay? Instead of having the first quarter and the third quarter, the second and the third, the second and the fourth has been taken. In that case, what you see in front of you, it's not representing the a over x, it's actually representing the minus a over x. That's the idea. So if you have a reciprocal graph that is equal in this form, by the way, so you have to pay attention to the idea that there is a negative value. It's not ax anymore, it's minus a over x. So that's referred to as a over x. Okay, so I'm gonna just write notes here so you don't get lost. So we said that this is representing the y over equal a over x, and this one we say that it's equal to y over equal minus a over x. Okay, now there is another two cases of the reciprocal that they might be confusing, this one and this one. These two, they also represent reciprocal graphs, but they have a special case. The general form of the graph of these two draws or these two graphs is representing as y equal to a over x squared. Okay, so it's not x anymore, it's a square of x, and sometimes it's gonna be as the same thing of the previous one. It might be equal to a over x over square with a negative minus a over x squared. So the idea is this: the positive one is basically this one, the positive, the one that represents a over x squared is going to be this one, the one that has both of the reciprocal graphs. They are on the positive axis parts. They're not on the negative side. While the one that is representing minus a over x squared is actually this one, the one that can be represented in the negative parts of the x and y axis. Okay, so this is representing minus a over x squared, and this is representing a over x squared. So I'm gonna the same thing, I'm gonna take notes here so you don't get lost. So this one is representing the y equal a over x squared, while the general form for this one is actually y equal minus a over x squared. Now I'm done talking about the reciprocal graph. Okay, there's 4 possibilities for the reciprocal graph. What is left are these two. These two represent what is known as cubic. From our study, if you remember, we said that the graph or the reciprocal graph is represented as this. If you remember, we said that the reciprocal graph has 2 possibilities. Either to be having this waving shape or to be having the opposite of that. Okay, so you don't get confused. It might be in this shape or it might be in this shape. I know that the difference is not clear, but now you recognize it. The upper peak should be on the right side of the axis, while here it's going to be on the left side. So which one is what? From our study, if you remember, we said that one of them is going to represent the x-axis, one of them is going to represent the what do I call it, is going to be the positive, the one that has a bigger than 0, if you remember, or a is bigger than 0 or a less than 0. But the idea, which one is what? Now when you look at the graph here, the graph saying that this one similar to what, I mean, the graph is a little bit tight, so it's a little bit confusing to think of which one is this. This one is actually represented as in this form. Look, it's going down and then it's going up. Okay, and while this one is representing the opposite of that, which is going to be going down from this side and going up like this. So these are the 2 graphs, okay, which is the B and the F. Now when you try to think of which is what, I mean, the only one that it looks like a cubic is this one, the one with the negative. Okay, so the idea is that when I talk about negative, it means that this is representing what? It's representing y equal negative what? Negative a x cubed. What is the idea of this? It means what you see in front of you here is negative. Okay, and when I say negative, the negative form, when you have a as a negative or less than 0, which is minus half, the general form of my cubic function, it should be in this form. It should be like this. Okay, which is this one. While this one, as you can see, representing the opposite. This one happens when a is bigger than 0, while this one happens when a is less than 0. And then in my case here, a is going to be minus half, as you can see. Okay, so now I explained everything about how you can solve this one. Now let's fill the letters with this one. It said, for the first one, it said y equal 2 over x squared. So since it has x squared at the bottom part, it means that this is one of 2 things. Either it's going to be this one or it's going to be this one. And since we have x, we don't have a positive. We don't have a negative sign, so this one is not going to be included. So this one is going to be C. Okay, so this one is going to be C. The second one, as I said, it's the cubic part. It's the cubic function, as you can see. It has minus half, so since it has minus half, it's going to be B part. It's going to be part, as I said, B. It It means when you have a as a negative, the shape of your cubic, it should be like this, while for the first one it should be like this, the reciprocal. The last one, it has x on the bottom part, so it has only x, it's not an x square. What is the meaning of that? It means that since it has x on the bottom part, it means that it's gonna be one of two things. Either it's gonna be this one or this one. And since I have negative, and I say that to be able to have a reciprocal as graph A, it has the A, it should be a positive value. This one has to be negative. And since we have negative here, -5, so this one is gonna, the answer for this one is gonna be E. Okay? I hope that this video is explaining everything clearly. It was a walkthrough about how to solve it by explaining the variety of graphs that you see in front of you. From this point, whenever there is a question that is related to this, whenever the graphs that has been given to you, whether that they are cubic or reciprocal, you will be able to solve them, inshallah. So see you in another video, guys. Take care.